Blog Talk Radio.
Hi everyone, my name is Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and welcome to a very special edition of Franchise Rewind on Franchise Interviews. Well, today we're going to find out how franchising changed Tom Scarda's life. Not knowing how to start up or operate a business, Tom chose to buy a franchise. So today you're going to find out how this ordinary gentleman achieved extraordinary success through franchising, and that's coming up on Franchise Interviews. So stick around because we got a great show.
Are you one of those special people who are willing to go after your dreams and goals? Are you ready to fulfill that dream of owning your own business with the security of a proven brand? The opportunity to take control of your future and own a Rita's Italian Ice franchise is within your reach.
Rita's is seeking success-oriented individuals who are ready to make a change in their life, and Rita's offers unparalleled training and support to assure your success. And did you know the frozen treat industry is a recession-proof industry, and there are Rita's in 23 states currently with 540 stores open. Rita's Italian Ice has been around for 25 years and is listed as a top-performing franchise by the Wall Street Journal.
Now here's the really good part. Rita's Italian Ice is a unique and amazing taste treat. It's smoother than a snow cone, and it combines ice with real fresh fruit. The real fruit adds dramatically to the taste, and it comes in over 40 flavors. The ice and fruit are mixed on site and made fresh daily, and it is delicious.
You'll want to know more about this exciting and successful franchise opportunity. Go to www.ownaritas.com and get all your questions answered. That's www.ownaritas.com to take control of your dreams and future today. You don't want to wait any longer to be a part of this adventure. www.ownaritas.com.
Franchisers, are you looking to reach aspiring entrepreneurs looking to buy a franchise? Are you looking to reach a highly educated audience on franchising? For over 4 years, Franchise Interviews has been giving an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship through our website, franchiseinterviews.com, where you can hear and read interviews as well as get inside tips from some of the most successful sources in franchising. Check out our weekly franchise radio show, where each week you get to hear a new interview with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys, and our podcast, Great Quotes in Franchising. Get 3 months of free advertising when you sign up for our 1-year package. For more information, go to franchiseinterviews.com or call us at 610-905-2919. That's 610-905-2919.
Need a business loan? Talk to Diamond Financial Services, the experts in franchise financing nationwide. Whether you're looking to start a franchise, acquire an existing franchise, or expand your territory through opening new locations, Diamond Financial stands by your side start to finish. From pre-qualification to packaging and presenting your application to securing a financial commitment, and through the loan closing process, Diamond Financial is there. While you're waiting, thousands of others are making their financial dreams come true. Don't wait any longer. Pre-qualify now by completing a confidential, no-obligation financial analysis. Let's face it, traditional banks just aren't in the business of financing small business. At Diamond Financial, we specialize in securing franchise loans from $100,000 to $3 million and equipment leasing up to $150,000. Let us help you get started. Go to www.franchisefunding.net or call 877-508-2300. 877-508-2274. That's franchisefunding.net, 877-508-2274.
Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Franchise Interviews, where we're asking the Franchipreneur who owns one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott, with my co-host, Don Johnson. And if you've ever dreamed about owning your own business, then you've come to the right place. We have a great show this morning. Today we're meeting with franchise consultant Tom Scarda. And Tom Scarda is a regular guy who left the 9-to-5 world, promise of a pension, and a gold watch to explore his desire to follow his dreams to become an entrepreneur. If you're having a problem deciding if franchising is for you or how to make the transition from a 9-to-5 workday to owning your own destiny, Tom is certainly the person to talk to. Learning about Tom's firsthand experience with franchising will give you an insight into how you can realize your dreams too. And that's coming up in segment 2 of Franchise Interviews. Our first segment today is being brought to you by Franchise Interviews, LLC, and Franchise Interviews gives you an up-close and behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship through our website, Franchise Interviews, where you can hear and read interviews as well as get inside tips from some of the most successful sources in franchising. Our weekly franchise radio show, where each week you get to hear and read interviews with franchisors, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and franchise attorneys. And our monthly franchise newsletter, which is a must-read for anyone looking to buy a franchise. And don't forget to check out our new podcast, Great Quotes in Franchising. And Don, welcome back to another edition of Franchise Interviews. How's your week going, my friend?
Week's fine, Marty. Going well. It's a beautiful day. Summertime.
Sure is.
Summer's flying by. It's halfway through August already. How about your week?
It's going well. I can feel traces of fall. You know, I was talking to Connie this morning. You know, you can feel that slight thing in the air. You know what I mean? Where fall is coming. So, yeah, weather's been beautiful here in Pennsylvania. You know, it's not too hot. So yeah, looking forward to fall though. I know you're a big fall guy as well.
My favorite time of the year. Yeah.
Yeah,
next week I'm going up
here.
to the mountains a little bit. I'll get a little bit of that cooler air. And
that's right.
So
that's a lot of fun. Our last show, Don, we got to meet with Mr. Kelly Grace, the Vice President of Franchise Development for 1-800-RADIATOR. And 1-800-RADIATOR is one of the fastest-growing franchises in North America. 1-800-RADIATOR delivers brand-new radiators within 2 to 3 hours to its local customers and next day to customers outside the same-day area. I thought it was a very interesting franchise concept. What were your thoughts on the last show?
Yeah, he was very informative, Marty.
He was.
Nice to have on a very interesting franchise. We didn't really know much about them. They're real niche business, and
they sure are.
I think you brought up the point. There's over 220 million cars throughout the country, and
right.
A percentage is going to break down or need their type of service, and
that's true.
And I think he mentioned with the way the economy is now, in a down economy, I guess there's a chance less people might be buying new cars. So with more older cars on the road, there's just a chance that things might be happening for the service they provide, and just pretty interesting. It's not the type of franchise you hear an automotive franchise. You think you're going to be in a garage all day, but they just look for someone with management experience, and it's more a distribution type of service. They don't really need anybody with that type of background. I thought that was very interesting, and the profit margins are well, and they have mostly the whole country sold out, don't they? Pretty much.
They sure do, yeah. I think, I'm not sure how many territories. I think it's like 20 to 30 territories left, I think, within the U.S., and I probably suspect that might be sold out by the end of the year at the way they're going. 1-800-RADIATOR was ranked number 37 by Entrepreneur as one of the fastest-growing franchises, so you can see the growth has just been, and Kelly has seen it. I think he's been with the company, who as you mentioned, like 4 years now.
Right.
To actually just witness that growth, to be part of something like that, I think is really something special. But I like how you mentioned the market is pretty big, and people are keeping their cars longer today. He mentioned that, and I didn't know this, that people have to change their radiators, I guess, after, 7 to 8 years?
Right.
Which does leave a pretty big market. Last year, let's see, $6 million
6 million radiators were replaced each year, making that a $6 billion market. So that's pretty significant.
Right.
And again, these guys have a niche in that market. And it's not a difficult sale. I don't think it is. It seems fairly simple if you think about it. You're not going to get a very long time to pitch your product. Again, you're going into, automotive stations, and I suspect you're making a 30 second to 1 minute pitch. And
we're going on a long trip. Your heating or air conditioning's not working. That's a must. You're not. You're definitely going to get that fixed. You're not going to.
Absolutely. And it was interesting because I guess many of their franchisees, Don, he was mentioning, they have diverse backgrounds, don't they?
Right.
I think some of them come from corporate America, and it's not your typical person that you may think, where someone just wants to get into the automotive industry. So
we've done a lot of shows where it's typical that it's a family business gets built up, and then a new owner comes along and buys it and really takes it up to a whole nother level.
Absolutely.
Just what happened with 1-800-RADIATOR. Same thing happened.
Yeah, absolutely. And the technology, too, how they're one of the questions we've been asking on our recent shows is, how do you utilize technology? And they're using it for their e-catalogs and, all sorts of things. They have all this information on their customers, so it really is quite incredible.
It seems like that's what's separating them from their competition.
Oh, absolutely, So just a very interesting show. And he was very passionate, too, wasn't he? He was, and you like to hear that, when these guys come on the show and, you hear their passion for the company. They do kind of get you excited. And I was, quite honestly, I was unfamiliar with 1-800-RADIATOR. And I'm saying that wrong, too. I think I'm using my New York accent. My wife was saying, too. She says radiator. I think you say radiator.
Right. I say it correctly,
You do? Okay. There you go. So I'd like to have him back on a future show. He was a fantastic guest and just a great franchise. So what do we have going on today and over the next, 5 months?
A lot of stuff going on today. Like you mentioned, beginning of the show, Tom Scarda.
I'm excited about that. Tom's a New York guy.
Consultant, definitely. Local. Used to own a Maui Wowi Fresh Hawaiian Blends franchise for a couple of years. Was even Franchisee of the Year. I was just reading some things about him. In 2003, took on the role of Director of Regional Support, Greater New York area. So he'll go over his whole background, tell us about what he's doing and how he's helping.
It's an inspirational story, Don, too. I'm looking forward to Tom talking about his background, because I could certainly relate to it. I have a lot of family that actually works for the city of New York, and I think typically with them it's the same thing. They're doing it because they want the pension, and I think Tom wanted more than that, and he achieved all his dreams. So that was fantastic.
Definitely. Next week we're going to replay a show of some of the past authors we've had on the show, including the great Michael Gerber, also Joel Ababa, Julie Bennett, Joe Matthews. Had them all on in the past, so that's
going to be a good
3-hour show.
It's long.
Packed with great franchise information from some great writers and great people in business. On the 28th, Marty, Navis Pack and Ship. Got to know them a little bit. A packing and shipping franchise. September 4th, Dr. Scott Shane. He wrote a recent book, The Illusions of Entrepreneurship.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun having him on the show. He's very similar, Don, to Michael Gerber, in his philosophy. There's some similarities. So I think you're going to enjoy having him on the show.
He's also a top and leading expert in entrepreneurial activity in the U.S. So look forward to that. September 11th, Brian Spindle, Postnet franchise.
That's right, yeah.
And then we have another 4 or 5 shows lined up through October, and so just a lot of good stuff coming up.
Yeah, going to be very busy, but a lot of great stuff. And again, slowly approaching that 100th show mark, which is going to be like around the third week of November, which we're not going to talk too much about now, but we have a lot of exciting guests already booked for that show. So
my birthday's around that time, so maybe the first half of the show will be just honoring my birthday. The second half,
we'll have Michael Gerber sing "Happy Birthday" to you. How many people can say that, right?
Yeah, my best birthday ever.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know you had some interesting articles as well. There was a lot in the news this week, wasn't there, Don, as far as different topics on franchising and all that other stuff?
Yeah, a couple quick stories here. Here's something, the Wall Street Journal. Pizza delivery expands in China. I thought this was interesting because that's the focus, around the world right now with the Olympics going on there in Beijing. I've been watching a little bit of that. It's been pretty exciting.
Right.
This is by Andrew Edwards. It says, restaurant giant Yum Brands, Inc. is betting that as China's expanding middle class continues to demand more of the typical Western middle class lifestyle, consumers will develop a taste for one of America's favorite convenience foods, pizza, and it being delivered. Pizza delivery, common in the U.S., of course, is a new concept in China. That's why I'm kind of reading this article, too. I thought something like pizza delivery was pretty common in a lot of different countries, but not in China.
Right, you think it would be, yeah, but just China right now is just, as you said, it's exploding. It's funny you're reading this article because on CNN the other night they had this whole special on McDonald's and how they're growing in China. And, they're just opening up. It's like a restaurant, like I think similar to the old statistic, like 1 out of every 10 minutes or something like that. It's really incredible, the growth that's taking place in China.
It's also incredible how these franchisors have to adapt to these different countries. They have to kind of change things up a little bit, the menu, the style, whatever. But it says with pizza delivery common in the U.S., not in China, where dining out has long been seen as a form of conspicuous consumption. As a result, until recently, Yum had focused on positioning its Pizza Hut locations as a 5-star experience with a 3-star price that would attract Chinese consumers looking for a night on the town. So pretty interesting story about them. Here's something, Marty, about Marble Slab announces expansion into Mexico. This is out of QSR Magazine. Marble Slab Creamery announced today that it will start a new international franchise venture in Mexico. The franchise agreement will allow Marble Slab to continue to expand its reach and provide gourmet products to a growing number of countries. We know Marble Slab is part of the Nexen brands with several other concepts.
Right.
The initial agreement calls for a minimum of 35 stores to open over the next 20 years throughout the country. The first store is scheduled to open in early 2009. It says here, operating principal Julian Reyes Cuevas is confident the Marble Slab will be a welcome addition to the area and that its high-quality products will appeal to the Mexico market. Cuevas' interest in the brand began when he visited his first Marble Slab store while living in the States. Shortly after, Cuevas and his family began working with Colin Fitzpatrick, franchise development manager for Nexen Franchise Management, to develop the brand in Mexico. He says Julian's patience and commitment to the process of negotiating and executing this agreement is indicative of the caliber of the partner he will be for the Mexico market. It seems like it makes a lot of sense. It's a warmer climate type country.
That's true.
The premium ice cream brand will probably have a lot of success down there.
Right, it makes a lot of sense, absolutely. That's interesting. Yeah. Those franchises do so well too, Don. At the as you're reading the article, I was thinking of like the International Franchise Expo that we go to every year. And the visitors or the aspiring entrepreneurs are really from all over, the world, not just the United States. And those ice cream franchises.
International activity in the
there's a lot of international activity there. And you just see those booths, like the Marble Slabs and all the ice cream franchises and. Right. People just seem to really dig that type of concept for their country, so very interesting.
Something, Marty, out of Information Week. Small, mid-sized firms to spend $280 billion on technology by 2012. It's by Casey Jones. It says information and communications technology spending will increase among small and mid-sized businesses, but it will be affected by the current economic crunch, according to research from Compass Intelligence. America is facing very serious economic conditions which will not change overnight, says Neko Burney, president and CEO of Compass Intelligence, in a prepared statement. This means that businesses large and small will need to become more efficient and innovate if they are to survive the current crunch. A new 5-part series of reports called Economy 2.0, New Challenges and Opportunities in Business, ICT Spending, predicts that small and mid-sized firms will increase their ICT spending, and ICT is information and communication technology, spending by 6% to 8% annually through 2012. Those firms could present communication technology vendors with the most opportunity for revenue growth since they are expected to increase ICT spending the fastest. And it says here, Marty, this year U.S. businesses are forecast to spend $688 billion on ICT services, equipment, outsourcing, and personnel, according to the report. Managed and hosted services, wireless, and some networking will grow the fastest between 2008 and 2012, according to Compass Intelligence.
Wow, that's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, businesses with 5 to 99 employees will represent 32% of ICT spending this year. By 2012, they will spend nearly $280 billion, according to the report.
Oh, that's incredible. It's just...
Yeah, we've just been talking about technology. We've added that question in a lot to the question.
And it's a fun question to talk about, is how franchisors are using technology. And many of them are just, getting really creative. I don't know if you remember this, Don, but we were speaking about the restaurant franchises a couple months back, how they're actually calling your cell phone, So if you go, I know in Jersey, a lot of times you'll have to wait to go into a restaurant, because it's so crowded. Well, what they're doing now is they're actually calling your cell phone, so you can actually go walking around and, have someone call your cell phone and say, hi, Mr. Johnson, your table's ready. It's just really incredible what a lot of them are doing. It's something.
And we just, of course, met last week with 1-800-RADIATOR that, technology was a major, was a big difference.
There was another one, too. I don't know if you remember For Refuel, when we were talking to those guys, how they were using technology. It was really quite amazing how they can tell if a delivery truck is going too fast, how long they're sitting at a stoplight. All these crazy, things, facts and figures that they're getting from a computer is just it's really overwhelming. So, and it's also exciting at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting. Here's something, Franchise Times Magazine by Michael said. Patriots Act, franchising welcomes veterans home. This has been a common theme on our shows, talking about veterans investing in franchise ownership. I thought this article was pretty interesting. A question to Michael's side is, I'm a Marine currently serving in Iraq and will be rotating back to the United States at the end of the year. I read about VetFran on the Department of Veterans Affairs website. What can I expect with VetFran and who's benefited from it? He goes on, he says, the International Franchise Association started VetFran during the first Gulf War, and after going dark for a period, it was reinstated after 9/11. Franchisors provide veterans of the armed forces and Coast Guard financial benefits, including a lower franchise fee should they become franchisees when they return to civilian life. In addition, the VetFran program includes financial aid to help veterans pay for some of the franchise startup costs and also college scholarships for those who choose to return to school. Cynics might describe VetFran as just another way for franchisors to recruit new franchisees, but talk to any of the 350 franchisors who participate in the program, you'll find a more compelling purpose for their investment. Military service provides candidates who are already trained to become good franchisees. Military personnel understand the need to be dedicated to a mission. They've been trained to continually work to improve performance, and they understand what it means to be part of a team, are able to lead when asked and know the importance of following the rules. There's no better training ground than serving in the military to learn the skills needed to be a great franchisee. Through VetFran, more than 1,100 servicemen and women have been awarded franchisees, and more are being added every day. Each participating franchisor structure its offering a little differently. Most reduce their initial franchise fees. Some reduce their franchisees' initial investment, and others make arrangements with lenders or leasing companies for preferential terms. Many provide support programs through additional training, headquarters and field support, and mentoring programs. And here's a few examples of that, Marty. Dunkin' Donuts offers 20% off initial franchise fee in new store development. TCBY gives 50% off the initial franchise fee. It says here Meineke Car Care offers a 25% discount. The Dwyer Group, which I think has had a lot of background history with the VetFran program, has different discounts depending on the brand. Mr. Appliance reduces the franchise fee by almost $4,000, Mr. Electric by almost $5,000, and Mr. Reuter Plumbing by about $5,600. Right.
And Dina Dwyer, I think she actually runs that organization. I think she's the chairman of VetFran, Don. So, yeah, I think that's fantastic. Have you had a lot of experience with VetFran yet, or?
Yes. Well,
you have.
We speak to a lot of people during the course of the month of who's been in the military. So they're asking about the program, and so we go over some of the positives of it, and it definitely helps.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's a fantastic thing, and I guess this is one of the things I've mentioned on previous shows. When I go back for my doctorate's degree, this is the topic that I would like to address. Is one is, do people from the military make better franchisees? And I'm under the assumption that they do, and I could be totally wrong, but, a lot of the things that you mentioned, leadership, and I think the biggest key factor is the ability to follow a system, and not decipher from that system, say, this is how it's done, just do it this way, and if you do, you'll become successful, and there's some people out there, there's probably a lot of people out there that just are not meant to be franchisees, and I'm sure Tom will talk a little bit about that as well. People being sometimes so entrepreneurial that they want to reinvent the wheel,
Right.
So
it's
I
an interesting comparison. The person with the military background compared to someone with a lot of business experience, ownership, and skills.
What works
better?
better?
Pros and cons on both sides. But you're right, which works better is an interesting topic.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it's a great organization. I mean, everything that I've ever heard about VetFran, I don't think I don't believe there's any ulterior motive at all. I mean, I think it's just a way of giving back to the military. And by the way, it could be any war. It could be the Korean conflict. It could be World War I, World War II. It doesn't have to be, the most recent one, So it's really good for any veteran that would like to take advantage of this. We had I don't know if you remember this. This is going way back. Miami Rice Pudding. I don't know if they're part of VetFran, but I remember Ken McEvey. He was actually waiving the franchise fee for any veterans. So I just thought that was really generous, to do something like that. It's just showing appreciation for.
It's a great program for what they do. The article goes on a little bit. It's important to understand that some of those franchisors participating at VetFran are mature brands with strong track records, while others may be newly emerging concepts and may not have the same level of support or history of success. Simply selecting a VetFran franchisor member is not a guarantee that the opportunity is right for you or that you will be successful. As with any franchise, you need to conduct your own evaluation before making your decision. Due diligence is just as important here as with the non-VetFran offerings.
Right.
Good point. So, here's something Marty that stated recently, DQ CEO pushing for same look at something different chain. We've kind of been on this ice cream kick lately. I just mentioned Marble Slab.
Well, July was National Ice Cream Month, so.
Right. And, of course, having Baskin-Robbins, just a national brand with a lot of history. This is by John Vomhoff out of the Minneapolis St. Paul Business Journal. The first challenge for Dairy Queen's new CEO is an old one, convincing franchisees to update the chain's aging stores. John Gaynor, who took the helm July 1, believes the DQ Grill and Chill and DQ Orange Julius Treat Center concepts will help rejuvenate the 68-year-old restaurant chain and differentiate between the various store offerings. Many franchisees, however, say the remodels cost too much and don't result in higher sales. Yeah, kind of an interesting article here. At issue is the divide between the company's older Dairy Queen and Brazier locations. Is that Brazier, B-R-A-Z-I-E-R? That's also been around for years with them.
Right.
Which Gaynor believes have inconsistent offerings that are confusing to customers, and its new brands, DQ Grill and Chill and DQ Orange Julius Treat Center. Both new stores are self-descriptive. The first offers a full menu of hot food in addition to the company's trademark desserts and other focuses exclusively on desserts. For Gaynor, the change is needed. When a customer sees a Dairy Queen sign and walks into a restaurant, they may not know what they can order in that restaurant.
Interesting.
He said, what we're trying to do is establish roadside clarity.
Right.
And it seems like that's what franchising is all about, of course. You want to get the same product and service whether you're in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, or out in California. I can see the CEO's purpose of trying to get everybody on the same page.
Right.
But at issue is a lot of older franchisees, and let's face it, the economy's a little rough right now, and there's a heavy cost involved with upgrading your store.
Oh, absolutely. And we spoke about this, for the last 2 years. There's a lot of franchisors jumping on this bandwagon of updating or modernizing their brand, I should say. I think Kentucky Fried Chicken was one of them, weren't they, Don? They actually added like jukeboxes to KFC, and I'm dating myself. I'm saying Kentucky Fried Chicken, KFC, adding all these modern features to their restaurant. And I don't think they gave their franchisees a choice. I think they said you have to do this, otherwise I'm not sure what the deal was.
Right.
But and Dairy Queen is. When I think of Dairy Queen, I think of that older brand, that I used to go to when I was just a little kid, So, I think it's time.
It says Dairy Queen expects 13 to 14% of its more than 5,600 stores to be DQ Grill and Chills by the end of 2008. There'll be more than 100 remodels in 2008 and even more in 2009. Aging restaurant concepts like Dairy Queen need to find ways to stay current, says Bob Golden, Executive VP of Chicago-based restaurant consultancy Technomic, Inc. You have to do something. You can't stand still. I think looking at some ways to contemporize the business and energize it would pay off. And it says here, Gaynor believes the DQ Grill and Chill, launched by its predecessor, Chuck Moody, will help attract new customers and lead to increased sales. It says wherever franchisees are investing money to remodel their stores, we're seeing good return on investment with same-store growth and increased profitability. Some franchisees aren't buying that. Harris Cooper, Executive VP of Dairy Queen Operators Association, argues that the updated concepts are not performing as well as the company contends. His association represents about 1,500 of the Dairy Queen franchisees.
Wow.
So there's kind of back and forth here. I guess it's something we'll have to keep an eye on, see how this plays out a little bit.
Those are the benefits of competition, too. You and I were interviewed on this topic, and I mentioned, how there's almost 3,000 franchise systems today, and, that some people are upset with that, that they say everyone's getting into, the franchising arena. But I think it's making a lot of these other franchisors, let's say the older franchisors, work harder, as you say,
Right.
to update and modernize their brands. So I think it's a great thing that's happening, seeing all these different changes. So that's fantastic.
There was even a lawsuit in Michigan, but it was dismissed. But I think they're thinking of taking it back to court. The issue is whether or not the company has the right to insist that franchisees go into a new concept that has proven to be unsuccessful, if not dead. It's a live issue that we feel very strongly about. So this is pretty interesting. I imagine
that's powerful.
This is always, this is going to be a story probably we're always going to be seeing with maybe older franchise systems, and they're looking to modernize, but there's a price for that.
Absolutely. That's great. Those are good articles. Well, today, as we were saying earlier, Don, we have a great show. We're meeting with franchise consultant Tom Scarda, and Tom is, as we were mentioning, a regular guy who left the 9-to-5 world, promise of a pension and a gold watch to explore his desire to follow his dreams to be an entrepreneur. And for our listeners, if you're having a problem deciding if franchising is for you or how to make the transition from a 9-to-5 workday to owning your own destiny, Tom is certainly the person that you want to talk to. So, good morning, Tom. Welcome to the show.
Hey, good morning, guys. How are you?
Good, Tom. Tom, joining us is my co-host, Don Johnson, and I know you wanted to say hi to Tom, Don.
Yeah, Tom, thanks for coming on the show. We appreciate it. I hope your summer's going well. And do you always like being referred to as just a regular guy?
I'm just... Hey, Don, yeah. Well, thanks for having me on, first of all. It's an honor, and it's a pleasure.
Thanks, Tom.
And, this is great.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, Tom, we always like to start off asking our guests where you're calling from today.
I'm in Long Island, as they say.
You are in Long Island. I detected a little New York accent there. That's fantastic.
I was born and raised in New York City, in Brooklyn.
Oh, great.
And we're out here on Long Island with the kids and
that's great.
putting them through the suburban education system, I guess.
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, Don and I both have roots from Brooklyn as well. I was born in Brooklyn, Tom. And Don, your dad is from Brooklyn, isn't he?
Right. Exactly. He grew up in Brooklyn on Flatbush Avenue, and been telling us stories our whole lives.
Yeah. Most of my family is still there, Tom, and they reminded me a lot of your story, because most of them work for the city, and the reason that they work for the city is the pension, as you said, and they're not very. I hope they're not listening because they'll kill me, but they're not very inspired, I think, with their jobs, So. We really appreciated your story. One of the questions we're excited to ask you, Tom, is how did you get involved in franchising?
Well, going back to the civil service mentality, I was working for New York City Transit subway system for about 13 years, and I kind of got a little fed up with the bureaucracy and the nonsense and that non-ambition that civil servants typically have.
Yes.
I had an entrepreneurial itch. I could tell you all sorts of stories about people saying, no, you got to do things a transit way, slow down.
Right.
Well, don't walk so fast. It's so funny.
Exactly.
Right.
And so this frustrated me, and I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, didn't know how, didn't know where to start, and so I contacted a consulting firm that matched me with a smoothie company, and I took the plunge. My whole family, my friends were beside themselves. They said, you're leaving this perfect position with the promise of a pension, and, you could be, making, $40,000 a year in a pension when you retire, and that would just really frustrate me. And I said, you know what, I want to make $40,000 a minute. How about that?
There you go.
That's especially in Long Island. You really have to. It's an exaggeration, but just like really anywhere in the country, but especially certain parts like New York,
right.
Make a certain amount to have a decent living.
Right. Well, just the electric rate on Long Island is the highest rate in the country outside of Hawaii.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. No, I do believe it actually. Yeah. And you were very successful at franchising too, Tom. I mean, as Don and I were reading your bio earlier on in the show, I saw that you were Maui Wowi's Franchisee of the Year. And what did you attribute all that to? All that success with that franchise?
And to put it in New York terms, I say it was chutzpah. I wanted to make something successful, and first of all, I believe because I used a consulting firm, they matched me so well.
Right.
It fit all my skills, so I hit the ground running. But I always said I don't care what happens. I'm going to sell smoothies. I don't care if it's on the corner of 42nd and 8th. I'm selling.
Right.
I'll pull up the cart and I'm going to sell. And it was just having that kind of I guess blind ambition. Just I knew
like that whole attitude, like failure's not an option. Is it's really that whole.
Right.
He had a lot of drive. Starting up that business.
Right. You have to have the drive. And in 2000, no one knew what smoothies were in New York. Really, there was no one selling smoothies. Now it's I don't know what the numbers are. It's in a multi-billion-dollar category these days.
Right.
Everybody's getting into smoothies, from Starbucks to Dunkin' Donuts and all the way down the road. But back then nobody knew it, and people were saying, my dad, for instance, the quintessential former New York City cop, said, nobody's going to buy frozen drinks in New York.
Right.
That's crazy.
Right.
And what was funny is that we ended up getting a spot. It was like a blessing from God that we got into the Jacob Javits Convention Center in Manhattan.
Wow.
Their strong season is the winter. And if you ever walked around the convention center, which I know all of you guys have, it gets real dry, from the ventilation system. So people were buying smoothies like mad, and that's really what put us in our very first year into the number one spot in gross numbers out of 200 units.
That's fantastic. Were you surprised, Tom, that that's what you were matched up with, when you were going through the whole franchise consulting process, that they came back to you and said, you know what, you would do very well with this type of franchise?
I wasn't that surprised.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was like I was very comfortable with it, actually.
Right.
It just seemed like the right thing, but it was also explained to me that it was, we're not going to come back to you with a lot of things that you know of, because if you know of them, that means they're already in your neighborhood, and you're not going to be able to open up that concept.
That's true. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I think it's real interesting, Tom, and what you're doing now, and you went through the whole process yourself, so I guess that's why you're having success now with FranChoice, because you saw it, worked for yourself. Even though, the failure was not an option, I mean, you must have had, just starting up a new business. It was your first time owning a business when you start up the Maui Wowi, right?
That's correct, yes.
So what was going through your, thought process then? I guess you were just... You had some peace of mind knowing you were working with a specialist in franchising, which gave you some confidence, and starting up a business maybe wasn't as nervous to you because of that. Was the whole mindset going in, Tom?
Yeah, and it's a coincidence. I don't know if one of your former interviewees, Carol Mercurio, who I think was actually my consultant back in 2000.
Oh wow! She's great.
Yeah, she's very, very cool. She helped me out greatly in this process, and said, really, really set me up to have my mindset in the right frame of mind, I guess. And we, dove into the investigation process, but also the franchise company was very helpful. They were very forthcoming with their information, really told us what it was going to be all about, and said to us, this is not signing a franchise agreement and then becoming a millionaire. This, like a lot of people join a gym, they think just by signing the gym agreement they're going to lose weight. You got to go to the gym. You got to work.
Right.
You got to. She's very good in getting that information across to you. She probably taught you a few new things about yourself you didn't know because of her analysis and depth that your company goes into when you're speaking to a prospect, right?
Exactly. It was a soul-searching experience. I use that phrase every day. I experienced it myself, and now I take my candidates through that same soul-searching experience where, a lot of people say, well, I love donuts. Let me open up a donut franchise. That's just a silly thing to do. That's not a good business decision. Or somebody will say, there is no whatever in my neighborhood, so I think I should open one. And you should be buying a franchise based on what's good for you, not for the neighborhood.
Right. Yeah, so maybe talk about, Tom, what types of characteristics you think make a good franchisee. I mean, you go through that whole process. You probably know pretty quickly whether someone's a pretty good match or not. But what are some of the top characteristics that make people successful?
Well, there are two very delineating points. Either you're an extrovert or an introvert. And just because you're an introvert doesn't mean that you're not a good franchisee. It just means that you may not want to be the kind of guy who's out drumming up your own business, and you might want something where it's more back office for you. So first we kind of figure that out. But you have to have a lot of self-confidence. You have to be able to know that you can be a success. And people don't realize, even if they're 30, 40, 50 years old in a corporate job, they're successful to where they're at. Right. And then they have to open up their comfort zone and get to the next level. A lot of people are afraid of that, so you have to be a little bit fearless, be willing to take a leap of faith, and know that you can do it, because you'll never find a concept that you're 100% in love with. There's always a little something missing. And I kind of use the analogy of when you're buying a house. You might find the perfect house in the perfect neighborhood, but there's probably something wrong. You might not have the right windows that you want or whatever, and you have to learn to live with it, get into it, and then fix it and work with it.
Right.
So you have to do that. But as far as characteristics go, it's really the yearning and the want to really make a change for your future. And not everybody's cut out to be a franchisee or a business owner. And, we do need great people running, great civil service systems or what have you. But, for me personally, I could just speak from personal experience. I was successful in transit. I moved very quickly up the line, but then realized that, when I looked at the vice president and the president of transit, they weren't living in the houses I wanted to live in or driving the cars I wanted to drive, but business owners were. So if you got that drive, you can do it. And, of course, that's not for everybody. People are sometimes fine with a very simple lifestyle, and that's great. But I think you need to have the drive, and more than that, you need to have the vision, and you need to be a goal setter. You need to know what your goals are.
That's a good point, knowing what the goal is. Because that's what I was just going to ask you, Tom. What's mostly motivating people who utilize your services today? I mean, obviously they probably a common answer is they want the freedom, be on their own. Is it making more money? Is it spending more time with the family? What are some of the big, motivation, things that's going on now?
Well, unfortunately, right now, it's a lot of people just plainly getting laid off and can't get a job that was paying the same thing.
Right.
So that is not a good reason, really, to get into business. You really need, if you really want to be have that steady paycheck and you're comfortable with that, you really need to find a job, even if it's for less money. But aside from that, yes, it's controlling your own destiny, building, a good equity in a business to retire from.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people say, well, I need to make $100,000 a year. And, first year, there's not too many businesses that you'll put $100,000 in your pocket. But you need to look at a business from an objective standpoint, in that there's so many advantages to owning a business that are legal tax write-offs. So if you're running your cell phone through your business, that needs to come off and go into your bottom line, actually. So a lot of folks will tell you, I didn't make any money the first year. But, in fact, when you look at the stuff that they were legally able to write off, they actually make $50,000. And the guy who made $100,000 after taxes, blah, 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 he really only took home $65,000 or $70,000. So it's not that far off when you really think about it. And then in 3 years, the guy who started a business and followed the system now has a business that's worth $1 million, let's say, that he invested $100,000 into, and the guy who has $100,000 a job with a 5-year increase every year is now making $113,000 and has nothing to show for it. Right. So when you really think about it, you're really buying equity and building equity. The same reason why probably both you, Marty and Don, have purchased houses.
Right.
It's much easier to just rent an apartment. You can live anywhere you want.
True.
But at the end of the day, you don't own anything.
True.
Right. Good point.
That's an interesting point. What are some? I was going to say, Tom. What are some of the services provided by your company? I know you do a lot of different things. You do a lot of public speaking on a lot of great topics, which Don and I would like to have you come back on the show eventually and talk about things like motivation. What are some of the services that you actually do?
As far as FranChoice, do you mean?
Or as far as FranChoice, and I guess anything in general that our listeners might be interested in.
Well, in the world of FranChoice, I help people, obviously find the right franchise based on their skills and personality.
Right.
One of the biggest things is to get them to understand themselves and really kind of face their fears. So whether it's in franchising or if I'm just working with a company doing, a keynote speech, it's trying to get people to understand that the thoughts that they were brought up with are maybe not the best ideas to have going forward to help them expand themselves in their career or in their business or what have you.
Right.
So I work a lot with fear and anxiety and trying to unwind for people their everything that their teachers and preachers and parents have told us, because they love us, but they're scared for us. They're afraid that we're, everything is coming from the perspective of loss.
Exactly.
Don't lose this, don't lose that. But if you can get past not worrying about loss and look at look at gain and what you could have instead of what you might lose, your whole life turns around.
It's just the whole is the glass half full or half empty scenario, I guess.
Well, it is that, but we are, all of us are. It's so beat into our heads every day. Oh my goodness, be careful. What did your mom always say to you when you left your house every day on the way to school? Be careful.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Wouldn't it be better if mom said, "Be bold, learn something, have fun"?
That's true, yeah. And did you have that experience, Tom? Is that what happened to you? I guess, growing up as a kid, coming from, the Northeast or that background.
Yeah, especially with my dad being a cop and my wife also. My wife was a New York City police sergeant, just retired last year. So I grew up with this whole police mentality where the world is really dangerous. Be careful. Look over your shoulder. Every corner, you don't know what you're going to run into. And then you take that into your life. Whether it's, when you get into business and it's, oh my goodness, who's going to try to rip me off? Who's stealing from me? Who's doing this? And you spend your days worrying instead of saying, how can I get my business to the next level?
That's interesting. But I suspect you're different with your children. I know you have 2 kids, so you have a different philosophy than your parents had, and I guess Don and I will have different philosophies with our kids as well, than what our parents taught us, So it's very interesting.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, my daughter starts college in 7 days from today.
Congratulations. That's fantastic.
So are you going to tell her, Tom, to be careful as you drop her off? And what are you going to say to her as you're dropping her off at the campus?
No, I'm going to tell her to be bold, have fun.
Exactly.
Do what you want, experience life, and just don't hurt anyone. That's all.
Exactly.
We're meant to be. We're put on this planet to experience life, and so many people are afraid to actually experience life, and they don't. Let me just get a job. Let me collect this little nest egg so I can retire someday to Florida, and that might be good for some people, but it's there's so much more, and and it's kind of goes back to the theory of relativity. God kind of made this universe to experience himself as God.
Right.
And you got to know what you're not to know who you are, and that's what we'll talk about. I think next time we're on the show, we'll get real deep about how to experience life and why we're here.
It's a great topic, yeah.
And how to reach your potential. And I guess you made that decision at some time. You just don't want to settle for, say, being average, so to speak.
Right.
And I guess your parents, like many of our parents, being more on the conservative side, but you saw yourself as doing bigger and better things, I guess, and just wanted to reach your own potential. And I guess obviously, you're in the perfect position for what you're doing right now, because obviously, besides educating people on which franchise system might be a right fit, I mean, what you're doing obviously is also motivating people, trying to give them the confidence that they could do it if you feel that they'll be good, for franchising. So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I probably imagine this what makes you a great consultant too, Tom, is because you have that, background, that say as you in your bio like a regular guy. I think people probably relate to you maybe a little better than some other consultants, that may be out there.
Well, that is probably true, and I do want to say that that's probably one of my strong points, which makes me, a leader within the FranChoice organization.
Right.
But I love to, disseminate to my colleagues how great they can be too, and use their experience to make them the perfect consultant for their candidates as well.
Exactly.
I think that there's a lot to be said for from my experience as, what you said earlier, as a regular guy. I could relate to a candidate and I can relate to an audience because I never walked on the moon. I never played in a Super Bowl. I never drove a race car.
Right.
But I left the corporate environment to follow my dreams, and it's been a success. I mean, I was semi-retired at 41 years old, so there's a lot to be said for that.
Yeah, no, it's very inspirational.
People love those stories.
Absolutely.
Marty and I read those on our shows a lot. We'll tell a story about a We've had franchisees on the show, Tom, and they told us about their success, what they've gone through, and we'll be having plenty of more of those shows.
It's very inspirational.
Yeah, I think it'll be great for you guys to do that kind of stuff because
right.
And so what, and it makes me ask the question which you asked before, what separates the guy who does great and the guy who doesn't do great? And I think it's just a vision of what you want to do.
It's true. Right, seeing the big picture, and absolutely.
So, you're probably a big believer. Excuse me, Marty. I was just going to ask Tom. Big believer in goals and being driven, and we've talked to people where that's so important to have goals and write them down and follow a system. I guess whatever system you have, to just stay the course, never give up, never be satisfied. I guess that's all the stuff you're a big believer in, of course.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
A goal is just a dream with a date on it. So, dream big, put a date on it. I tell my candidates all the time. People say to me, well, I want financial freedom. I want to be financially independent. Okay, what does that really mean to you?
Right.
Well, that means, I want to have a house, in the Bahamas. I want to have a tiki hut in my yard, looking over the ocean. So, okay, when do you want to do that by?
Exactly.
We can do it by 2015. Put a date on it now, so at least you know what you're working toward. And I think that makes a big difference. And I'm not going to get into all of it now, but there's been studies that people who have written down their goals succeed and meet those goals 98% of the time, as opposed to those who don't write down their goals.
Yeah, it really is incredible. Something so simple as just taking a pen to the paper, Tom, and just putting it down, and we had Michael Gerber on our show. Actually, it's twice, right, Don, at this point? And he has a similar concept, Tom. He's created this whole thing. It's called In the Dreaming Room, and you actually go into this room for 2 days, and he teaches you to dream big, as you were just saying. It sounds a lot like Michael Gerber as you were talking, and what it does is I think it excites you, I mean, knowing that all these wonderful things are going to happen to you, so it is so important.
It's so funny. I have Michael's latest book on my desk right now, The E-Myth Mastery, with a picture of both of us together at a conference that we did.
He's fantastic, isn't he? He's just he's really wonderful.
I love to hear him speak because he is no holds barred, man. He is out there.
Right. He'll say anything on the show too. He's just he really is. He's something. I think when we had him on the show, I think Don and I both walked away inspired for several weeks, Don, probably just pumped up just after talking.
Oh yeah,
to him.
I'm Mr. Salesman on high octane for the next week at least.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
I just want to ask you, Tom, in a down economy, let's see. You see more people investing in some of the smaller franchises as opposed to your average investment times type of franchise. Is that what's been going on? You've seen more of the smaller investments?
Absolutely, and that's what I've been trying to bring to the table for my candidates. Stuff that's service based. You're in for $100,000 or less. You hit the ground running, cash flow almost immediately after you get out of training. That is the kind of stuff that's making sense right now. And people say, so, what does that mean? Recession-resistant, technology-resistant. You think about, glass replacement. If your windshield is cracked on your car, how can you get an inspection sticker when the time is up? You got to get it replaced. It doesn't matter how much cash you have. You're going to put it on a credit card. That's recession-proof business.
Right.
That's interesting, yeah.
What's been the most interesting thing that's happened to you, Tom, since getting into all this, the consulting? Has there been one story that stands out? I'm sure there's a lot of them, but... That was a tough question, by the way, for our guests. To think of one thing that is the most interesting thing.
That is a tough question. I think probably just looking back about where I was and then where I've come in 8 short years.
Right.
I get one of the most outstanding things that I've done was the opportunity to walk on fire with some motivational speaker guys.
Wow, that's
really,
something, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I have pictures of it in my office. And
so like Anthony Robbins kind of thing, like, yeah, that's amazing. And he's great, too. He had this great phrase. I remember reading one of his books, Tom, and he said that most people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 10 years. And as you said, that it kind of made me think of Anthony Robbins. It sounds very similar, and what you've accomplished in 8 years is really quite incredible, so it's living proof, so yeah, that's fantastic.
What's your thoughts, Tom, on the growth of franchising right now? And Marty and I on the show, we go over a lot of statistics and the economy being down and a lot of different industries down, and franchising as a whole, the numbers are up. But what's your thoughts on it?
Well, it's I tell my candidates all the time, there's more than 3,000 franchise concepts spanning 75 different industries.
That's
so
right.
You can get into something you would never thought of in a million years. But let's make sure that it makes sense, for you. And there's a lot of very cool stuff. There's a lot of great stuff. But I try to tell people not to get involved or not think about the stuff that is, fancy schmancy and here today, gone tomorrow. So the expansiveness of the industry is encouraging. When I was at the, IFA conference and I'm listening to Mr. Shea talk about how, the economic impact of franchising in a nation is astronomical. We're responsible for 10% of the, economic output in the United States. I mean, that is incredible numbers when you think about it.
Right.
So I'm encouraged by it. I think that it makes sense. I don't know if you guys have talked about it yet, but like in California, they're trying to just discourage franchises from opening up in L.A. County and downtown Los Angeles. And I think this is something that needs to be spoken about very quickly because I think it really will hurt people that use the services in the area. I think it's very narrow-minded thinking. So as we're expanding, globally, we're shrinking in little markets and as important as L.A., and I just heard that New York is kind of talking about the same thing now after L.A. has passed this law where you can't open a fast food franchise in L.A. proper.
That's scary,
so, It's kind of silly and short of saying stupid. But
right, sure.
I'm surprised that law even passed. I just don't understand
it.
It's against what America is for.
And it's just people that don't understand franchising and the government think it's not the right thing to do. It's give the small entrepreneur a chance. And the fact of the matter is the mom and pop entrepreneur ends up failing more often than not, and the franchise doesn't. So you got to wake up and look at the statistics here.
Right, exactly.
Give people a fair chance. Yeah.
What are your plans for this?
FranChoice do? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Don. Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, what does FranChoice do to approve a franchise system? I mean, you work with very successful franchises, large and small investment. What's the process that'll be an approved concept with your company, Tom?
Well, I don't do that process. That's done with the home office in Minneapolis, but I know it's a 6-month type of process that a franchisor has to go through. And, we look for things such as things that the layman wouldn't know to look for. Like we would like to see at least one franchise support person in the home office for every 7 or so in the field. 7 or so franchisees in the field. So we want to make sure that you got great support, great training, no litigation in the FDD. We want to know that there's a good sales team and they can handle the onslaught of candidates that we're going to throw at them. That's a big thing. We do secret shopping. We'll do validation calls. We'll secretly call to franchise owners, as I encourage all my candidates to do as well through the process, and get the franchisee on the phone and ask very pointed questions about the support they're receiving, and are they getting the support that the franchisor says they're going to give in their glossy brochures.
Right, so there's a whole lot involved there, so that when it is an approved concept, you're speaking to a client or potential franchisee, there's really no negatives, except for maybe it might be a newer system. Is there a certain amount of franchisees that you want in the system before you might work with that franchise?
Yeah, we do want to see certain numbers, but every once in a while we will take on something that's brand spanking new, but it's because of the management team that is in that concept that has taken it on. And, franchising is a small industry, so we know who's who and who is really, running the concept. And it's funny because a lot of people boast that they have, the CEO of some big Fortune 500 company come over and take a franchise and run the franchise. And that's we don't see that as a great thing, or at least I don't. I think that you want somebody from the franchise industry who has taken, a fledgling concept and grew it into hundreds of units, and now they're going on to the next to do the same. So we put a lot of weight behind who's running the franchise.
That's great.
Good. That was a very good question, wasn't it, Tom?
It was a good question. Tom, we have about 30 seconds. What's the best way to get more information on your services? I know you have a couple of different websites and phone numbers.
I'll give you a phone number. It's a toll-free number, which is 866-545-6191. Or my personal website is tom@tomscarda.com. That's TOMSCAR, D as in David, A.com. And I could be contacted there for any type of questions, whether franchised or not.
Okay, that's fantastic. We actually have a link up on our show page as well for that too, Tom, so our listeners can actually click that and get more information right away. And I want to thank you again, Tom. You definitely motivated Don and I this morning. We were both excited to finally have you on the show. We've been plugging the show for a while, and we definitely would love to have you back in the very near future.
Well, I'm sure, Tom, you might write a book in the future, maybe, Tom, right?
I have already put pen to paper.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Okay, good.
That's terrific. Yeah, congrats on that. So
have a nice rest of the summer, Tom. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks again, Tom.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Our pleasure. Great show, huh, Don?
Thank you.
Great show. It was just, very motivational. And we knew he was going to be fantastic anyway, just great personality. You can see why he was, so successful doing what he did, So you'd love to hear those stories. I'd definitely love to have him back. So for our listeners, I think, you still there, Don?
Yes.
Okay, I thought I lost you. But anyway, what else? For our listeners, go to our website, franchiseinterviews.com, and what else, Don? GoFranchise.com.
Franchise.com to get information. Also, franchisefunding.net. People want to get pre-qualified for financing.
Absolutely.
Thinking of investing in a franchise, so we'd be happy to speak to you. And, have a good rest of the day, Marty.
You too, Don. Talk to you soon.
Take
care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.